Hi everybody, thanks so much for inviting me, by the way. First of all, just a quick show of hands, was anyone actually at the Babelcampu 4 years ago? Yes, one. I promise that there are new slides, I promise. Okay, so first of all, yeah, thanks so much for inviting me back. I set off from Gdańsk around 3 a.m. this morning, had a great drive down, it was all fun. And just really always love coming down here. So I'm going to try to today talk to everybody a little bit about social selling. I guess everyone's heard this buzzword before, right? Social selling. There's lots of different opinions on how it's done. But what I'm going to do first is, the way that I normally present this is I'm going to show you how not to do it. I've got some great examples I've collected over the time. And then I promise at the end of my presentation, you will have some ideas that basically tomorrow you can go and implement. It's not going to be, what I kind of hate are these things where people get on stage and they say, you should be a storyteller, and then they walk off stage and you're like, I have no idea how to do that. So I promise that there will be some actual things that you can implement the next day. So like I said, luckily we had the one person that was at the presentation 4 years ago. For those who don't know me, Mick, Griffin, head of sales and marketing at Traffit. It's actually a recruitment company, but we're not going to be talking about recruitment today. And yeah, I was very lucky to be here, what turned out to be 4 years ago. A lot has changed since then. I used to work at Brand 24, social media monitoring. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that today. And I thought it was like, wow, 4 years ago. And I realized today that I brought the same pair of shorts. So not everything has changed, ironically, from 4 years ago. I'm going to start my presentation off today with perception of actually sales, because deep down I'm still a salesperson. I use social media marketing and everything, but I'm still in sales. But technically, I don't know if any of you have actually had this, but normally sales doesn't have a good reputation. Like if someone says I'm a salesperson, you kind of go like, holy crap, he's going to try to sell me something right now. Like, you know, we don't have a good reputation in sales. But there's a really, really valid reason for that, because when we think about salespeople, traditionally we think about this kind of person, and they really ruined sales for everybody, but it wasn't really their fault. And there's kind of 4 reasons why we ended up with sales and salespeople having a really bad reputation. The first one was that even to today, a lot of people that are doing sales have very little targeting at all. Like this person here, they would park their car on the end of the street and they would knock on every door, and they have no idea who's on the other side of the door. Their goal is to make sales, and it was never really about the person they were talking to. The second thing is that salespeople technically have a really bad reputation for is bad timing. I don't know about you guys, but I've had that phone call, it's 5 p.m, I'm just about to eat my dinner, and it's like, hey, I'm from T-Mobile, I'm from Orange, would you like to upgrade your plan? And I'm like, oh, go away, like it's really bad timing. But they don't care. But the reason for that is because they're under high pressure. So their goal is to make as many sales as possible that day or that week. And what those salespeople were doing is they were passing that pressure onto you as a customer. Like, if you buy today, I'll give you half off, but if you buy tomorrow, it's going to be double the price. Yeah, we like a lot of pressure involved in the situation, and there's very little follow-up. You guys will have still had that even today. People will email you, they send you an offer, and then you never hear from them again. So we had very little follow-up. And the key difference now to then is that we as consumers, us as buyers now, we have control. So if you type into Google how to stop cold calling, there's 177,000 results. Yeah? We don't like it, we want to take control, and we don't want sleazy sales processes anymore. But the problem is now is that salespeople heard this idea of social selling, and they're like, wow, it sounds cool, let's do it. And they don't have really any idea how to do it differently than they did before. So you may recognize these kind of things. Somebody follows you on Twitter, you follow them back, you say fine, and then within 3 seconds you have an offer. You're like, I have no idea who you are. And we have these over and over. And has anyone here ever been cold pitched on LinkedIn? Like suddenly got on LinkedIn in mail saying, hey, listen, I want you to buy my product. You're all very lucky people, because I get these all the time. Now, what I want you to do is look at this. So this is like Karen, who I don't know, And she writes me a message saying, hey Mick, we offer multi-touch, multi-channel, B2B marketing approaches. And what I do is I look at this modern day sales pitch through LinkedIn, which is a super cool tool to get information. And this is the problem. If you actually look at how it's written, this person is only talking about themselves. We do this. We would like to do this. I would like to do this for you. Like, we will provide you with the leads. But nowhere in this pitch is anything about me. So you remember that old school guy that would knock on your door? Same problem. 50 years later, we're doing it no different. We're just using a different channel. Here was somebody, ironically, if you actually take this away, was trying to sell me helicopter lessons on LinkedIn. Who knows why? However, let's just avoid that for a second. You want to? Yeah, come in. It's just started. The same problem again. My name is, I work for, we do this. It's me. So we see these same tactics all the time. And it's like, salespeople are so desperate and under so high pressure. When I worked at Brand 24, somebody tried to sell me a list of Brand 24 clients, and I worked there. They even sent it to Mick at brand24.com. So, you know, we are just pushing so hard without even thinking what we are doing anymore. So what I decided to do, because I'm genuinely interested in sales processes and salespeople. So whenever somebody pitches me, I was like, why me? Why are you pitching me? And some of the reactions are quite amazing, to be honest. So this was somebody that wanted to guest post on the Brand 24 blog. And this person wrote, I've been following your blog for quite some time, and I reviewed all of your recent posts. So I was like, okay, great. Which posts did you review? That was my first question. And they wrote, the recent ones. You know, they didn't even think quickly, I'll go to the blog, I'll pick some. They are just, you know, running fast, running hard. They didn't put the effort in. So, you know, this was a person that was like, hey, Mick, my name is Paul, and we do augmented reality technology. And I'm sat there going, I have no idea how someone can use augmented reality with my company. So I thought, let's see what he does. So I replied, and I'm like, hey, Paul, I'm interested. What made you think my business can do this? And he wrote, hey, Mick, I think that all businesses can use it. And I was like, great, why mine? And he didn't reply. So it's like but they think that this is social selling because they're doing the same thing, but they're doing it on LinkedIn. So I had a pitch from someone that was pitching me software development houses. And I'm like, did you look at my website? Not yet. Brutally honest. I love the honesty. And I'm like, was there something that made you think I need your services? No, not really. I just pitched you anyway. And I'm like, wow, it's amazing. So I honestly recommend, if you ever get a chance to do this, if someone gives you a really bad sales pitch, please reply. It's really, really a lot of fun. But this is someone that was like, you know, we offer services to companies in Central Europe. I'm a member of the board. And I was like, you know, what about my product makes you think we are a good fit for your company? And they were like, can you tell me about your product? And I'm like, no, it's not, you're selling me. It's your job to go and learn what my product is. And I was like, no, why did you write me if you don't know? And they were like, no, come on, please, give me just a little bit of information about your product. Now, this is LinkedIn. They can see where I work. They can go to my website. They can do all these kind of things. So I said, you know what we do? We produce ebooks for astronauts. And then they didn't reply, unfortunately. So if you're not going to do the hard work, this is what's going to happen. The same thing, and I'm like, you know, why, you know, did you visit my website? Did you do this? Did you do that? And the reply of the lead was, there's no one way that I can actually sell you our services. And they were like, Mick, I don't have time to check everybody's profile. It's way too time consuming. I'm like, wow, you make me feel really special. Thank you. And this is like real life. And I'm like, hey, listen, I'm not just going to be a dick. I'm going to be like, hey, listen, why don't you try checking out my profile? And he's like, it's time to work smarter, Mick, not harder. And I was like, what you're doing isn't smart. And then he was like, hey, listen, do you need a logo? And I'm like, okay, we lost this conversation. So this happens a lot, like all over the internet. So literally what I want to actually show you, we'll get there. This is a great one, by the way. Somebody told me that if I use their services, they will make me the 10th richest man in the world on LinkedIn. And I'm like, literally, you will become the list of the top 10 richest people in the world. So I said, hey, the 10th richest person is the CEO of Oracle, and he's worth 58 billion. Can you show me the math behind why I will be that person? And then they stopped replying to me, unfortunately. So we are still seeing that people think social selling is being sleazy but on social media, and it's really not the case. So here's a person that, for example, said, congratulations on your career in marketing. I can see you've been busy. And then he was like, he started talking about my competitor, and what he'd actually done is he had copied and pasted the previous reach out that he'd done to my competitor. So I replied going, hey, listen, maybe you should talk to my competitor. And they were like, oh, I'm sorry, I was typing too fast. What about you? But it's too late, yeah? You've shown me as a lead that you're just not thinking about me. So let me show you a good one. I got this message on LinkedIn, and someone was like, Mick, came across your profile, looked really good. Congratulations on Brand 24. I'm going to let my marketing team know about your product. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. I like leads. You can be my lead. And then a couple of days later, he wrote to me like, Mick, I've seen your profile. I know that I work with chief revenue officers of SaaS companies, and that was my job title, and I was working in a SaaS company. So I'm like, okay, that's 2 points for you. Good job. And then he's like, I help companies that reduce churn. And I'm like, awesome. At Brand 24, we have a lot of churn. I want to work with you. That sounds great. So I checked his LinkedIn page, and it even says, I help chief revenue officers reduce churn. So he wasn't like bullshitting. It was real. And I said, amazing. Churn is a hot topic at Brand 24. But what I said is, can you please pitch me somewhere else, because I don't want to have a call. So can you pitch me your idea or your product through LinkedIn, through email? I just hate getting on the phone. And I said this, like, but everything else should have been for a salesperson. He should have been thinking like, wow, awesome, good lead. And we waited, and 3 weeks later, he replied to me saying, Mick, sorry for the delay. I've actually looked at Brand 24, and you're doing everything right. I can't help you. And he was totally wrong. We had high churn, I needed help, and I had told him I needed help. The reason why he quit on the process was because I said, I'm not getting on the call. I'm not going to have a phone call with you. I'll do anything else other than have a phone call. And he just gave up, because in his head he was like, I'm a salesperson, I find people on LinkedIn, I have a call with them, I close the deal and I get the money. And because I asked him to switch one part of the process, it all fell apart, which is crazy because he did the hard work. Sometimes it's just fun. Now, has anyone ever had an email like this where we are a company and we do this, and this? And I was like, wow. So I replied going, hey, thank you. I like FIFA. I like going to the park. I like watching Netflix, and I like cake. And they didn't reply. I mean, again, I kind of reciprocated what they did. Here was one. I got a message from Rogesh asking me if I wanted to buy his software development services. And I'm looking at this pitch and I'm like, you look familiar. You look a little bit like Zac Efron, Yogesh. So I replied to him saying, I loved you in High School Musical. And he didn't reply. And then later, he actually sent me a follow-up saying, I haven't heard back from you. Like, did you see my message? So obviously it was automated. And I wrote, are you still working with Mitch? So anyone that didn't know, this dude is Mitch from Baywatch. The ironic thing is he replied saying, no. And I was like, that's too bad. I really liked him. So, you know, we have a really good way of finding out when people are bullshitting us. We have a really good radar for it. Now, for those who don't know, I actually used to have a conference called Pipeline Summit, and it was all about sales processes. And every so often, a company from China would pitch me pipe, literally physical pipe. So I would get an email saying, like, we manufacture steel pipe. What would you like? And I was like, okay, I'll take 3 tons of pipe, but I want a discount. So they replied with, okay, what materials do you want? And I'm like, oh shit, I don't have a clue. So I was like, standard, steel, Play-Doh, 3.5 inches. And they replied with, what is Play-Doh? So in my head, I suddenly imagined somewhere in China there is an office where they're like, what is this stuff that he's talking about? But it's really fun, and I highly recommend it. But it's also because I just want to see what they do. So I do this in almost every one of my presentations. Quick show of hands. Does anyone like being sold to? Does anyone like when someone sells them a product, like, hey, listen, I want you to buy my product? 0. Yeah, half maybe, no? Okay, it's really good, because I also hate being sold to. So I'm going to ask you a question. This is actually a really bad question in terms of timing because of COVID. However, let's say pre-COVID. Did anybody used to go to the cinema? Yay! Okay. Did anybody, when they went to the cinema, watch the trailers before the movie? Okay, so this is how it normally, when I go to the cinema with my wife, I'm a little bit weird because I'm kind of watching other people, and this is what normally happens. So the cinema starts, and you're all sat down, you get your popcorn, and then the trailers come on like this.
We owe this to everyone who's not in this room to try.
I'll wait for it to finish, just for the effect. Cool. Now, you might try this next time you go to the cinema and everyone's back there. This is what happens. When the trailer comes on, look at the other people in the cinema, and they are all like this. They are watching the trailer. The trailer finishes, and it causes emotion or engagement because they say to their wife or husband, oh, we have to go and watch the movie. And, you know, the wife is like, no, movies, but they're talking, and you can see them having that engagement. And then this happens. And you're in the cinema going, like, this is you don't have Biedronka here. It's like Lidl, Netto, it's like a supermarket in Poland. Is basically, everyone goes from looking at the screen to looking at their phone or having a conversation. They instantly lose interest, right? Now, the key thing to know about this is when you go to the cinema and you watch trailers, you are being sold to. You are being pitched as service right in front of your face. However, we all go. We all do it. We almost enjoy it. But there's 2 key reasons. When this happens, we hate it. Now, there's 2 key ways that we actually like being sold to. One is when it's relevant. Now, this sounds super obvious, but when we go to the cinema and we are being pitched other movies that you will go to the cinema again and watch, we're like, it makes sense. I'm here. It's fine for me. When you get the supermarket advert, it's a complete guess. They have no idea if you're hungry, if your fridge is empty, if you even like the supermarket, and that's why we suddenly go, I'm not giving you my attention because it's not relevant to what I'm doing right now. The second thing is that we actually have the ability to think that we have a choice. We know technically we can go to the cinema 20 minutes after the time. We could skip the trailers if we wanted to. So when we are sat in the cinema watching the trailer, we like being sold to because we think, I'm in charge. I can leave, I can get up, I can decide if I'm not doing this or not. And we like it. So ironically, we like being sold to, but when those 2 elements are in place. And it's that extreme, the movie industry have this so good that even when there was the Avengers movie, 97% of people that watched the Avengers movies stayed after the movie to watch the teaser for their next movie. Because again, relevant, interesting, and choice. You can leave, you can stay, it's up to you. So what I want to do now is I've shown you how to do it wrong, and I want to start talking to you now technically about social selling and how we can do it and actually benefit your businesses and your brands and your products tomorrow, literally. Now, the key is, this has been around probably for hundreds of years, yeah? This is a sales funnel. We put people and leads in the top, sales come out of the bottom. Now, we actually don't think social selling is so popular and so useful because we don't find it very predictable. But companies do cold calling and cold lead generation and cold mailing for years and years and years because it's predictable. People say to me, Mick, I hate cold calling. I don't know why companies do it. It's so crazy. And I'm like, I don't like cold calling, but I know why they do it because it's predictable. Yeah. So if you make 1,000 cold calls, you will end up with 30 people that don't tell you to go away. That's literally the statistics. And then of the 30 people you get to, thank you. Of the 30 people that don't tell you to go away, as a good salesperson, you'll actually close 10% of them. So the reason why this will never die is because as sales managers and as CEOs, we always know we put that much in the top, that much comes out of the bottom. And look, under 2% now of cold calls result in a meeting, not in a sale, in a meeting. So we know that it's tough, but it's predictable. But what I want to show you is social selling and selling through social media is predictable too, and a hell of a lot more fun and a hell of a lot more interesting than cold calling. But let me talk you through it. Now, there are technically 4 ways to create a social media sales funnel, okay? The first one is social mentions about you, your companies, and your brands, okay? Now, this, again, sounds really obvious, but there are mentions online every single day, like this one, like, hey, listen, should I buy a Panasonic camera or a Canon, or should I just stay with my iPhone? So that is a person that is mentioning the specific products, and what they're doing is, this person is asking for help making a decision. Yeah? Should I buy MailChimp or Aweber for my email marketing? Should I buy Pearl Jam tickets? Should I buy a PS4 Pro with a game or without a game? These are consumers asking, my money's in my pocket, I'm ready to spend it, where should I spend it? Now, the crazy thing about this, what people don't always realize, is they go, oh yeah, I get those notifications on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, or whatever, when people mention me. 3% of the time, consumers will tag you. So the next 100 times your business is mentioned online, the statistics show that 97% of the time, you won't get a notification about it. So someone will be like, I don't know, should I go to Babelcampu next time and buy a ticket? And if they don't tag, we will never be there to help them make that decision. Now, the good news is, if you find those people and if you talk to those people, statistically, 100% of people that mention your brand, when you actually reply to them saying, hey, listen, I'd love to help, I'd love to give you an advice, I'd love to tell you the differences between us and this and that, 100% of the people say, oh, thank you, let me know, or I'd love to talk to you, or I'm thinking about it. 100% reply rate. So if you're Mr. Salesperson and you can take those and you can convert them at 10%, just like a cold call, instantly, if you've got just 10 mentions of your company in a month, you've got 1 new sale in your funnel. Now, I understand, 1 sale, it's not enough, yeah? No one's getting excited about making 1 sale. So the second part of the funnel that I would love you to think about, really, is people are talking about the problem that you and your business and your company solve. So I showed this, I'm sure that I showed this slide 4 years ago, and it's still as relevant today. 14,000 people every single month say on social media, can anybody recommend? Can anyone recommend where to go, what to do, what to buy? What should I do? 30,000 people write, where can I buy? 30,000 people a month have their money, have their credit cards, and they go, where can I buy this product? Where can I buy your product? And, you know, people are not there and they're not guiding them how to do it. So, you know, can anyone recommend a good webinar platform? Yeah? Can anyone recommend a good CRM? Can anyone recommend where to eat in Warsaw? Yeah? PR companies, and even, can anyone recommend where's good to eat in Prague? Yeah? Like this tweet had no comments. Not a single person replied, yeah? Because they didn't tag anybody, they didn't use any hashtags, they didn't say, can I eat in this restaurant or this restaurant? They said, where should I go, yeah? And one person giving an advice for an out-of-town person would have been like, yeah, try this place, and I'm gonna be like, sold, done. Next one. For anyone that's been to Prague before, can you recommend where to go and have a nice restaurant? Yeah, and obviously it's not living la vida loca, Ricky Martin, unfortunately, but it's an English guy, and I'm glad that he put like, I'm not an English douchebag on a stag party because nobody wants them in their restaurant or bar. I get it. But what you have to remember, one comment, 5 likes, one person engaged this post saying like, oh, you should go here. That's it. So imagine, and I want you to think about this in the other way. Imagine how many restaurants, how many PR companies in Prague right now are spending money on Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram posts, getting the perfect shot of the right food, and yet nobody's talking to the guy that's like, where should I go eat? It's insane, but it happens every day. The kicker for this little one is that actually this guy, who goes on the sunbed quite a lot, won the Apprentice TV show in the UK and has almost 50,000 followers. So if you actually engage that person, you help them, you give them a recommendation, they may end up being an ambassador for your client, for your restaurant, even if you have a friend that has some food place. Like, nobody was taking care of it. So the crazy thing about this is, of those 45,000 tweets of where can I buy, what should I do, 60% of them have 0 replies. 60% of them have somebody is genuinely going online saying, can somebody help me decide how to spend my money? And 60% of them are not actually having any response. When we actually checked this, and we checked 100 of those that did get replies, 39% of them said, thank you for the recommendation. Now, can you imagine cold calling 100 people and getting 39 people going, thank you so much for cold calling me today. I really needed that information. No, most of the time you're getting the phone put down, etc. So this is an alternate way of doing sales and generating business, and people are saying thank you, and they're saying thank you, why? Because it is relevant and because they made the choice. They decided to ask on social media if they need help and they want recommendations. So when you pitch them your restaurant, your bar, your service, your product, they can't complain because they asked for recommendations. So it's a huge spin on the sales process. So this is our funnel now for people that have a problem to solve. So if you can find 30 people a month that have that problem, 30 people talking about where can I eat in Prague, where can I go to a restaurant in Prague, what's the best place to go and learn about social media in Prague, there instantly you've got one more sale. But I know it's 2 sales. Nobody cares. It's not the same as cold calling. Now, this is the cool one, especially if you are a growing business. You can check what people are talking about your competition. This is great. Your competition have lots of money. They spend all that money on advertising, so they have a lot of people talking about them. And now the good thing is, social media means that doesn't matter how big or small you are, you can actually hijack that process. Let me show you, if anyone hasn't seen this is how Volvo did it. Can we make it a little bit louder? Oh wait, can you hear it? Okay.
Sweden is Swedish. So how does Volvo compete with the other car brands and their millions spent on commercials during the game? We don't. We steal it.
When you see a car commercial during the game, any car commercial, not Volvo, you can tweet using the hashtag Volvo contest.
The interception was simple. Their commercials would give you a chance to win one of our cars for someone you love. Just tweet their name to Volvo during any car commercial. When Mercedes wanted you to look here, people immediately went here. When Lexus spent 4.5 million for this, Twitter looked like this. Shifting the social conversation to Volvo. With up to 2,000 tweets per minute every time their commercials aired, we changed the Super Bowl conversation from one loud 30-second roar to an ongoing conversation about Volvo that lasted the entire game. We were the only car company to trend both nationally and globally.
So they weren't advertising on TV, they were letting all the other car companies do that for them?
So basically what Volvo thought was, we can spend $4.5 million for one advertisement in the Super Bowl, or we spend no money on advertising, and every time one of our competitors has an advertisement at the Super Bowl, we'll run a competition on Twitter. And they got 2,000 tweets a minute, and the only company during the Super Bowl to trend on Twitter, and they were the only company that didn't spend advertising because they decided to hijack. When it's social media, you can set the rules. You don't have to follow the trend. So the thing is your potential customers are talking online. So here, for example, is, and this is kind of an extreme example. I'm still no reply from GoToWebinar's customer service. Now, not every mention of your competitor is going to be negative. They might be positive. They might be saying, I love GoToMeeting. But you ask your sales team, if you are in the webinar business, this is a hot lead because you now know they use webinars and you know who they use, and you can also predict what state of mind they're in, i.e. still no reply from GoToWebinar. I hate GoToWebinar. I hate GoToMeeting so much. Yeah, so people, and just for a second, think about the psychology behind this. If this person was just annoyed, they would talk to the person at the desk next to them or call their husband or wife and go, I hate GoToMeeting. They're putting it on social media because they want a reaction. They want somebody to react. They either want GoToMeeting to react or someone else to say, hey, listen, I'm so sorry to hear that. We will take care of you, yeah? This is why people are talking online. And like, here's, for example, WebEx, another webinar. There's 7,500 mentions a month. Or their customers are talking about them. So what we found out from research is that if your sales team, or if you in social media or marketing, if you reach out to 100 people who talked about your competitor, 13% of them will reply to you and say, I'm interested, let's have a talk. 13% response rate. So we know again that they can convert at 10% once we have the meeting. And now the great news about this tactic, and this is where this funnel gets really exciting, is you can have multiple competitors. You could have 20 competitors. You may have 10. You may have 5. You may have 3. But most of us have at least 1 or 2 with lots of money. So their hard-earned money, getting their clients to talk on social media, you can actually get that back by being human, doing the Volvo approach. So suddenly our funnel is looking a lot bit more interesting. And then finally, they are talking in a community. Now, I've talked about this lots of times before, but you know this. Basically, you know, there are conversations going online all the time about what you do and the problems you solve. So, for example, at Brand24, we do online reputation, things like that. So you can actually see that on Quora, there's conversations going on about how can I handle my online reputation. So what Brand24 started to do is they started to be part of the conversation, but where the conversation was happening. So it's not like, oh, drop me an email, I'll tell you all about it. It's like, hey, listen, I'll share everything I know with you right here on Quora. So the good news about that is that Quora and these communities, they have really good SEO. So if someone asks a question on Quora, there's a really good chance that that question is going to rank really highly on Google. Now, what Brand24 did is they put 2 full-time people doing this every single day, being on the communities and actually, and by the way, being very transparent. So they weren't pretending to be Brand24 customers. They're like, I work at Brand24. The key thing to take away from this, so Gloria's been doing it for a while. She has 4.5 million views on her Quora answers. 4.5 million impressions on Brand24's brand without spending any advertising money, but by being in the community where our potential customers hang out, by going and finding them and staying there. Kuba, who was doing this at Brand24, has 1.3 million answers on his views. So Brand24 was at 5 million plus impressions of its brand just by 2 people answering questions on Quora. Now, we actually will luckily be able to see this. This was our Google Analytics at Brand24 at the time, and Quora was #1 referral traffic provider for Brand24 by just being there. You can see 63,000 users from Quora. The next best one was 7,000. So it was a game changer. It really changed. For us, it got us thousands of trials every single month. but we also know the engagement. So we knew that for every 100 answers we got involved with in Quora, it turned out to give us 10 sales. So ultimately, to wrap up, what we can see here from a social selling, social media revenue funnel, for 1,340 actions online, we can end up with 28 sales. For 1,000 cold calls, we can end up with 3. So ultimately, what I want to kind of really let you take away, remember there's 4 different ways you can fill that funnel. Even if you try one, it's going to be better for you and your business than doing this one. Or do them at the same time. Don't try to convince your CEOs or to give up on cold calling, it's fine, but just look at the difference. It's 7 times more effective, actually, to do the work on social media. And I guarantee you it's way nicer experience than going, hi, listen, I'm calling you from Traffit. Would you like to buy my product today? No, fuck you, mate, go away. Next one, next one. And it happens, yeah, we know how it is. We don't like cold calling. But when you write into someone on Twitter that's like, I could do with some help with my recruitment. Hey, listen, I'm from Traffit. Can I help you? 39% of the time, they're like, thanks, Mick. Yeah, let's talk about it. 39% of the time. So what I would say is first of all, thank you for your attention. I really appreciate it. If you have any feedback or any questions, I would love for you to let me know on Traffit's social media. Also because my boss thinks I came to Prague just to drink and have fun. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And if you've got any questions either now or after the event, I'm going to hang out. I'd love to answer them. So Adam, thank you again. Thanks so much, everybody, for inviting me. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you. That one's for you.
Questions for Mick right now. Some of them. You know, you spoke about Quora those 4 years ago.
Yep.
But you didn't mention it's like #1 by that extent source.
Yep.
And but on the other hand, it's kind of right. You know, it's international since Brand24 is international.
True.
Which wouldn't apply if you're local, right? So what would be your next best tip? Like, you know, it's like Traffit is not international that much.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you do with Traffit in Poland in this?
No, it's actually a really good question because there's actually, so one little bit of news which is great for everybody is Quora is now localizing. They launched a Polish version 1 year ago, so there's likely to be local stuff. But the ultimate thing is, you do not decide where it happens. Your potential customers do. You have to go and find them. So again, you need to go and check, for example, Reddit. So for example, with Traffit right now, it's really hot that there are people there's a lot of Facebook and LinkedIn HR conversations going on in groups where you go and join those communities. But ultimately, it's really important that you have to go and find out where it's happening yourselves, right? So you've got to go and test them, try them, join them. But yeah, ultimately, you don't get to decide. That's the beauty of it, because you have to go to them to a place where they feel comfortable. So the reason this works so well is if Brand24 wrote on every one of those Quora posts, hey, listen, come to our website, talk to us, that's it, no value, there would be no traffic. But we're adding value where they are. So again, whatever industry, so I don't think Quora is going to be great if you're in the hospitality industry, but Facebook, Instagram might be. There might be hashtags on Instagram that are really hot about food and drink in certain locations. You've got to go to them. So yeah, it's a great point. Don't just go to Quora tomorrow and go, Mick said Quora is really good, but it has to be the place where your kind of people hang out. How I found that out about Traffit when I moved to Traffit was I asked my users and asked people, where do you go to learn? Where do you go to ask questions and follow them, basically?
So how much time consuming is actually writing relevant posts on Quora versus cold calling, spamming people? You know, if you had it in, I don't know, hours or something, not just absolute numbers like that?
No, it's a really good question. So what we ended up doing at Brand24 was we ended up with 2 full-time people probably not, we can't say 8 hours a day, but 6 hours a day looking for questions on Quora. They also spent a little bit of time investigating other places, so it wasn't just Quora, but yeah, because the one thing is that, again, if you go, we started preaching about Quora 3 or 4 years ago, and what a lot of companies do is they jump in, they copy and paste an answer on every Quora question, and then they get booted off Quora, or their answers get deleted by Quora because they have reviews and they have things. So the one thing I can say also is you can't really fake it, but what you will probably find as a business, so Brand24's average customer spends $80 a month, so that was relevant to how much time we spent on every question. The traffic, where in the HR industry where I am now, it's more like $200 a month, so we could almost literally spend twice as much time per question giving more value, let's say. But ultimately, I would say, I know it's a crap answer, but when you read it, you either say, I answered it great, or I didn't, or this actually just is really fluffy. So I would just be honest and just keep going and keep going. The other thing I can say about Quora is it took us 3 months of answering questions before the traffic started to come back. So it's not going to happen overnight. And I think that's also down to Quora's algorithms and things like that of watching you answer. When I talked to the people at Brand24 who did Quora, what they also said was, try from time to time to answer, don't just stay in one platform. So they weren't just talking about social media. They learned that Kuba's like a Real Madrid football supporter, and every so often he would answer questions about Real Madrid or football on Quora, and that rounded profile also helped a lot. So yeah, I know there's no, I would love to say like 3.4 hours per thing, but unfortunately it actually depends on the industry, but I would say just give more than you expect. You know, like just if somebody really reads it and reads value, I think that's where it comes from actually.
Because from my impression, the Quora actually, how I work there, I read like the 3 best answers,
Yes.
which are actually recommended to me via email.
Yes.
Because they know my hobbies and everything. They send me the topics.
Yep.
Click on them and then read the 3 or 4 best comments, and I ignore the others. It means the quality has to be really high in your case.
So it has to be really valuable, exactly. So people have to click like, I liked it. Now, remember, Quora has it's two-sided win. First side, people on Quora newsletter, they see it, they get notifications, but then every other person that types that same question into Google, Quora is number 1 and they find it as well. So it's a win-win actually on Quora, but it's worth the time. I've not found a company yet. I found companies that tried to cheat the system and it didn't work. But companies that genuinely put time into it, it normally comes out at the end, I would say. Yeah?
One more question here, because
sorry.
I often get to Quora from time to time looking for something.
Okay.
And I think, or my experience, that the very bad problem is that more often than not, I find the questions to the answer, I find the answers to the question I have, which are outdated. Yeah. And that's such a pain. Like, yeah, I got it. No, it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. No.
So do they spend time like updating the answers?
The honest answer is no, ironically. Now, that's the challenge with Quora as well, is that some of the best performing Quora questions that bring us traffic are from 2-3 years ago. So we actually almost get like, don't touch them, like they are good right now. But yeah, ironically, no, we never went back and changed them really, only when we had a product change where the answer was incorrect. So if we changed something in the product and we no longer work with Facebook, for example, we went back and found every answer so that people didn't feel misled. But ultimately, we don't go back, like Brand24 didn't go back and optimize that much at the time, only because, yeah, it wasn't always like the most recent answer was best. That's just, so what I learned from Quora was they love posts that have both written content, images, and videos, all in the same answer. So the more varied content you can put in there, also the better, ironically, because I guess it's very much similar like SEO, yeah? The more valuable the page with the more links, the more kind of, content, the better it is as well, so.